So I think one of the things that we have frequently had asked of us, and certainly I've gotten this in this role, is that there's been a lot of challenges in the industry very recently, certainly in Canada and Australia over the last year, where mining companies and Indigenous communities have not seen eye to eye. And there's been some real challenges to the engagement process. So I'm curious, Nick, for you to give your perspective on how you see the center addressing some of those challenges, both for Newmont and how we can support better engagement industry-wide going forward.
That's an excellent point, Catherine, and looking at some of the recent events that help us understand both our own view, performance, and the role the center can play. And I would say that the center has been established precisely because we know the mining industry hasn't always gotten it right. And there's a lot that we need to improve in terms of how we engage with Indigenous communities, the types of agreements we make, and the relationships that we have and that we build and maintain. Incredibly important role for the center to play. The center will provide a venue for transparent, frank, and respectful dialogue, not only about the things that we do well, but about the things that we don't do well. And I think that's where we learn to improve our interaction and improve the relationships with Indigenous communities. And lately, I think there's been an awful lot of scrutiny, as you indicated, on how the industry interacts with some of the Indigenous communities, and particularly how it manages the cultural heritage of those communities in and around our mine sites. And I think we have identified the respect for customs and culture very early on in the planning process of the center as being a critical focus area. We, as the industry, as non-Indigenous individuals, you and I, really need to learn a lot more about the cultural heritage of Indigenous communities. And until we're able to truly do that, we're not going to be able to understand what it means and what it means to the Indigenous communities themselves, and how our role to protect, engage with that cultural heritage in terms of what that means for us as a company. So an incredibly important role for the center to play to help us do much better in this area around cultural heritage and cultural resource management. The Global Center has been leading a review on behalf of Newmont to look at our current cultural heritage management practices and is helping us coordinate across all of our operations a global action plan to strengthen the work, the approach that we have and that we take for cultural heritage management. And that's really an important process and step that we've taken in light of some of the incidents and events that have happened recently across the globe in the extractive sector. And I think that finally at Newmont, we've built some mechanisms across the company that really promote and create a culture of transparency and meaningful participation with communities and landowners, to build a culture in which people feel they can speak up and they can raise issues when something is not happening correctly, or we are having issues around some aspect of how we're managing our operations or impacting communities or culture. And we want to know when we're doing well as a company. Everybody likes to know when they're doing well. But I think more importantly, we want to know when we are not doing well and where and how we need to improve. And that's what makes us a better listening, learning company and community, and improving what we do based on the community's input. So I think enhancing those mechanisms that we already have, improving them, expanding them, making them more accessible, will only help us as a company better understand the things we're not doing so well from an Indigenous community relationship perspective, and present the areas of improvement that we really need to make as a company and that we can share with the broader industry.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a challenging time, but it's definitely an exciting time because I feel like there's a lot of interest and a critical mass of attention going into this topic right now, and people are certainly, I think the will is there to do this right, but we still need to learn how to do that. So it's a process every day. Going forward, how do you see the lessons learned from the Global Center being integrated into some of the decision-making processes at Newmont?
Well, I think as we've discussed, one of the key functions of the Global Center is to share best practice. Not only our best practice, but the industry's best practice, or outside of the industry's best practice. And we want to learn, and we want the center to be that center of learning and sharing knowledge around what building respectful partnerships with Indigenous communities really looks like. And improving the relationships and approaches with those Indigenous communities near the operations certainly is integral to our strategy as Newmont to be a gold sector leader in responsible and respectful mining for the long term. And I think the center plays a pivotal role in helping us build that vision of what respectful and responsible mining over the long term looks like with respect to the relationships and the agreements and the partnerships that we form with Indigenous communities that own the land and the territories in which some of these operations are located on.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited that we're launching this and sharing it with the world, and this is only the beginning. So if people are interested, they can learn more by visiting newmont.com/Indigenous Community Relations. And we absolutely welcome people who are interested in participating in the dialogue with us to reach out through any of our social media, emails, and get in touch and be part of this conversation. So thanks.